Should I be doing a professional buyer consult with all of my prospective buyers? That's what we're going to discuss today here on the War Room. Hi, I'm Jason Wilson, and we're here to give you strategies as a real estate professional of working in the industry so that you can elevate the experience your clients get, make money doing transactions, but delivering extreme value where you have happy customers and or clients, depending on what state you're in. Let's go ahead and get into this. All right, thanks so much for watching. We really appreciate it. Before we get started, please go ahead and give us a thumbs up and or subscribe to the channel. We would love to hear from you. If you have a comment, go ahead and put it in the comment section. We'd love to, answer any questions or even create a video around a topic that you have. So today's topic is going to be on professional buyer consults. So the real question that people ask me all the time is, well, can't I just go show up at a door and let a buyer in and, help them out? And because I'm helpful, they'll hire me. And maybe that's true. Maybe that's not true. And there's been a lot of cases where that's not been true. So in the cases where it's not true, how do you get hired? And this is barring the issue that's changing the new rules where you actually have to have a compensation agreement before you start working with a buyer. So putting that to the side, right? Follow the rules and the laws of your state, and the federal rules and laws is my caveat to that. But this really goes down to how professional do you think it is just because you're providing convenience? Convenience should not be substituted for professionalism. And that's probably the number one thing that people make a mistake on, is they're like, well, I was helpful. They were like, ring, ring, ring. What are you doing? I'm doing nothing. Can you come open this door for me? Yes, I will. Okay. How professional does that look to them that you had nothing going on, that you were available at a moment's notice? And if that's the level of value, are they even going to hire you? So let's get into this topic about buyer consults. First of all, what are they? Number one, a buyer consult is going to be an educational experience where you sit down with a prospective buyer and you're going to explain several things. First is going to be the market. What is going on in the market? So they understand the game that they're getting into. Number two will be the process. If they're going to engage in buying a piece of real estate, what the process looks like. This will vary depending on their experience. If they bought a ton of houses, you're going to kind of distill this down. If they're a first-time home buyer, take your time and explain the details and use these words. This is what happens next. And then you share that with them, okay? And the third thing is going to be the services that you provide and what value you attach to those services. Somewhere in that conversation, before an agreement is reached, you're going to have to negotiate with the buyer what it is that you charge for these services, and they're going to either agree or negotiate until you reach an agreement or agreed that you're not going to do business together. Once that's been established, it is highly recommended, regardless of how the laws go, unless they prevent this from happening, is you should have a written brokerage agreement that says this is what your compensation will look like for providing these services. Pretty easy. So let's talk about some of the components of this buyer consult or presentation. All right, going back to the beginning, one is going to be the market. Some of those pieces are going to be what has happened in the market over the long term, like the American Idol slide. The American Idol slide shows inventory, and it shows the amount of closings and what happened since the great crash, the great recession of 2008, all the way up through current data to see the amount of inventory in there so that you can talk about what pricing is going to do. Another piece of data that you may want to use is going to be the 4% appreciation trend line to see where real estate in the United States is above or below that trend line so that people can make an informed decision on whether they want to wait or buy now. A third piece of data that you may want to use is going to be relative to your area. We call this one the game board slide. It will show the most recent quarter of how many transactions closed, how many closed that were green square, how many closed that were red square, meaning where's the room to negotiate if the seller did everything wrong, and where is, if the house is perfect and it's priced right, where you need to be as a buyer to be able to get that across that finish line. You want to share that information so that they have an idea in their head and that they're in alignment with that idea. Okay, after you're done with the market data conversation, now you're going to want to cover the process. So the process obviously should be starting with pre-qualification. Now, depending on how you do your consultation, the pre-qualification piece probably should have been done before you even met with them. Because if they don't qualify, you're doing a lot of work for maybe not necessarily a lot of gain. But if you haven't done that at this point, you're going to want to talk about pre-qualification with them and ask them if they have a lender and recommend that they shop that lender. If you'd like more information about how interest rates are affected and somebody's advertising one rate versus another, I suggest you watch one of our videos talking about the 2024 interest rates and how the Fed sets them and how the market determines what the consumer pays. That might be some helpful information for you. So once we've gotten past like pre-qualifying on a conversational level, now you're going to want to take them through the process of actually buying, what they're going to need fund-wise, right? So they're qualified. Now they're going to need some funds that have nothing to do with the qualification. These are going to be funds for inspections. Some will be for earnest money, which is refundable. You're going to want to cover how it's refundable in a contract, share that information with them. Then you're going to want to talk about the appraisal, right? Because that's likely going to be a fee they have to pay out of pocket, like the inspection. You're going to want to talk about things on the inspection report and how we address those with a seller to negotiate the second time. First time is to get the price right. Second time is to get the condition right. And then you're going to want to talk about it needing to appraise. All of those can be contingencies to get them out of the transaction, which if you're in this business and you've done transactions, you know all this. However, just because you know it and it's commonplace doesn't mean they know it. There is so much value in explaining it to somebody and they're like, oh, that's how my money's protected. Oh, that's where that happens in the process. I've had that conversation with people who've bought 4 and 5 houses before. Just because you know it like this doesn't mean they do. So stop assuming that they have the same level of knowledge you do and share the information with them. Okay, then you're going to talk about the title process, the bank's underwriting process, getting that final approval, which we call the clear to close, the CTC, and then going to closing, when and how they get their keys to their new home and what that process looks like. Then you're going to have to enter in, once that is all clear with them, is about your offer of compensation, what you charge for the services you provide. Negotiate that out and put it in some type of writing. Here in Georgia, we use what's called an exclusive buyer's brokerage agreement, is the primary document, although I'm sure there will be others that outline what compensation and what services rendered will look like. Then you're on the journey to looking for that house. Somewhere, anywhere in that process, you might run into a pothole that needs to stop the process and be problem solved. That can be that their credit wasn't where it needed to be to qualify in the pre-qualification process. It could be that in order to get the house they want, they're going to need a larger down payment to be able to get a slightly better interest rate or a lower payment. There could be a lot of things like that. It could be that you have everything, all your ducks in a row, but the properties in the inspection reports are revealing things that cause the buyer concern that the seller isn't willing to deal with or that can't be rectified, which would be very rare, right? Something that couldn't be rectified would be, where the house sits. Like we can't pick it up and move it to a different lot in most cases. But most of the time, stuff can be dealt with. It's just an issue of time and money. Sharing this consult with them, getting them to agree to hire you, and then having a clear compensation agreement of how you get paid and how you're going to communicate with them and the services you're going to provide will go so much further than just being like, ring, ring, ring. I want to see 123 Main Street. Great, I'll meet you out there. Do you want me to write an offer on this? There's probably 5 other interested parties. Let's do this. That's how we got a bad reputation versus having a consultative approach. I've actually heard real estate professionals in other states say how this type of behavior has ruined the industry. They liked it better where we're like, hey, this is what it's worth. Do you want to buy it or not? And they just stay out of the conversation and they're like, we make so much more money. And I'm like, yeah, but is that really value? Because they're making decisions based on partial information rather than you consulting with them so they have the best chance of winning. So they'll actually come back and use you over and over again. And they, most of all, trust your opinion. Being trusted is not necessarily the main goal of everybody who's in the industry, but it should be yours. So bottom line is, do a buyer consult, talk with your people, walk them through the process. If you're interested in crafting a buyer consult, you can reach out to me through direct message below and ask for a private consult, and we can put you on the calendar to talk about how to build your buyer consultation so that you can serve clients at a high level. Thanks so much.